Why is fashion so 1980s right now? Hello my jewels, welcome to or back to my channel. It is your girl Sunny J here, and today I am going to be discussing why fashion is super 80s right now and why no one's talking about it. And yeah, if you don't know who I am, I'm Sydney J. I'm a singer, songwriter, and also I'm a fashion design student, and I love talking about trends. But this video is going to be a little bit different from my trend report videos from a couple weeks ago, because this is kind of a trend prediction where I collected a lot of data from over the past 2 years, and this is my hypothesis. First, pop culture. These are pop culture things that have happened since 2022 to now. So first, let's start with 2022. I would say the earliest I would feel like the 80s was really like starting to come was when Stranger Things season 4 came out. Stranger Things is one of the biggest shows right now, and every time it comes out a lot of people are anticipating it, but this one was different because it was the most recent film after COVID, and it had 2 premiere dates for the most recent season. There were a lot of things that came out of this season. First of all, Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill song had kind of a resurgence and people were rediscovering it. People got obsessed with mullets, not because of Stranger Things, but this was also very popular back in 2022, and it still is now, except now it's wolf cuts, which are still kind of 80s, pre-70s too. But this came out in May and July 2022. Also in July, Renaissance by Beyonce came out. We first heard Break My Soul. I don't remember when it came out, but it came out in 2022, and then Renaissance came out. It was a techno electronic pop album, and it was kind of the first electronic album from Beyonce, and it was also for the girls and the gays, specifically the gays. But anyway, this was also in July. In October, Midnights came out by Taylor Swift. This album obviously was big by another artist, and this album, a lot of people were thinking it was going to be rock, alternative again from like Folklore and Evermore, but this album was actually just pop and electronic, and a lot of people were like, again, why? And people were really disappointed. But even though it was very 70s and the whole theme of it was very 70s, the music sound, not so much. In December of 2022, Hailey Bieber and Kendall Jenner were both seen wearing these bomber jackets, Loewe's Fall and Winter Collection of 2022. This bomber jacket was kind of like the first that I've seen of that year. This was kind of the first fashion trend I feel like that I was kind of noticing that the 80s were starting to recircle. Also in 2022, a thing that I noticed was more black media. Black media was really big in the 80s and the 90s, but the 80s was like, it was big. There's so many black shows that I can think of off the top of my head. We kind of noticed around early 2010s-ish that there were not that many black shows, and now I would say after 2020 with all the George Floyd and Black Lives Matter protests and everything, it was kind of coming back. But one thing in particular that were coming back were black teen shows, specifically black college themed shows. Now, we don't have a lot of college shows in general, but one of the biggest things that happened, one of the biggest like shows, I would say, black shows, is All American. It's one of like the shows that's been out since like the 2010s and is still like out, and they're about to come up with a new season in a couple months. But a spinoff from that show was All American Homecoming. Now, if you don't know about All American Homecoming, it is a HBCU themed show, and it takes place at an HBCU, and it is basically not the first of this century, but it is very popular amongst HBCU students. And what also came out in the 80s that was really big and literally was about HBCUs? A Different World, which was also a what? A spinoff. I'm just saying. So this was all, yeah, that's kind of my evidence from 2022 till now. I really couldn't find anything from 2023 because I feel like there were a lot of different decades. Yeah, so that's kind of the most recent, I feel like, media. Another media thing that I noticed was Daisy Jones and the Six. Now, you're probably like, Sydney, that show was set in the 70s. Now, if you do a little research, you're gonna be shook. Daisy Jones and the Six was a really big show that came out in 2023, like very early on. And it was set in the 70s. It was about a rock band that formed, and their whole history was like a fake mockumentary. But the interesting about that is that show was actually based off of a book off the same name. So I read the book and I did a little bit of, digging on it because it was one of my favorite shows of last year. And what did I find? This show is based off of, the band is inspired by Fleetwood Mac. Now, Fleetwood Mac, I would say, is also kind of having a resurgence from their Silver Springs performance, like being popularized on TikTok, to a lot of just other songs that they had that were kind of also being popularized on TikTok and Instagram. But specifically, they were a big band in the 70s, but they were also a big band in the 80s. Now here, let's talk about music. Fleetwood Mac is also not the only band that was kind of having a resurgence in the recent years, but also the Smiths, Carly Simon, Billy Idol, Michael Jackson, Kate Bush, like I just recently mentioned. But not only that, but there are also recent artists that are starting to have more 80s like sounds and not just techno. But I'm gonna mention or re-mention artists that I've already said. Now, obviously we have Beyonce, who put out a literal electronic album, which was very different and very random, which I loved. I still bop to that album to this day. Taylor Swift not only releasing Midnights, but also re-releasing 1989, which I mentioned in my last video, which was had a very big 80s sound. Who was one of the producers on that album and most of her albums? Jack Antonoff. What is his sound? Very 1980. I would say he had a remix on this hit single, Antihero, or what, however you say that. And that was like the hit single for Midnights, and the remix is very 80s too. But not only, bigger artists, but also different artists too. So me personally, I listen to a lot of pop music, like very, very pop. I love Dua Lipa. And she's been big, but she hasn't really released anything in the past year, since her last album was like, I don't even remember, but she's always kind of had an 80s sound. But I would say more than ever, like her most recent 2 songs are very 80s. They're just a bit more 80s than I don't know how to explain it. Zara Larsson, she has a very pop sound, and she's a Swedish artist. But she recently just put out an album, and one of the hit songs on there, Can't Tame Her, very 80s. An artist that I also would like to talk about is Conan Gray. Now, I feel like Conan Gray, he went from like indie pop to like 80s and like electronic pop, which is like very big on brand for him and his music. But his most recent record that he's putting out, he has 2 songs that are very 80s. Now the first one is it's called Lonely Dancer. It's one of my favorite songs, and it's very 80s electronic. I just love his songs. They're very dramatic in the production. But also Winter is probably something very unique and very different, and something that I'm not used to hearing. And as soon as I heard this song, the artist that I immediately thought of was Queen. Queen was also big in the 80s. Like whew. It's just, and you can kind of see that kind of inspiration. Like he has a little bit of Michael Jackson flair, and even the fashion in his music is definitely screaming of that. Also, I would like to talk about Ariana Grande. Her most recent video, her most recent song, very 80s, but also like the choreography, the outfit, like we could talk about it all day. But anyways, let's get into actual like fashion. So recently the BAFTAs just happened, and I wanted to point out 3 people who were wearing some very interesting outfits that were just also very 80s. First of all, Emma Stone's outfit. This is Louis Vuitton, and even though it is very much a nod to her character, the insane like big like prom like shoulder, balloon shoulder, is so 80s. And even though it, like, the costuming of that movie is very much influenced by the 1900s, not the 1900s, sorry, the 1800s, it still screams 80s to me. Margot Robbie's dress was also kind of annoying, but it gave 80s because pink and black were a very big color combo back then, specifically like with Madonna and Cyndi Lauper, and they were big music artists at the time. And Taylor Russell. Now this outfit, I feel like is just very extra because I feel like she's just so beautiful. I posted on my Instagram yesterday. But she's also wearing Loewe. Now, this was the only way I could literally bring this into the video with it making sense. Okay. Loewe. Loewe is a very big fashion brand right now, and the creative director is Jonathan Anderson. Now, remember that bomber jacket I was talking about that Kendall Jenner and Hailey Bieber were wearing? It's from Loewe. Also, Beyonce's Renaissance tour, who was it designed by? Loewe. Literally, completely designed all of her tour outfits. I think this designer is really campy, and also he's really good at like creating surrealist pieces, but also some of his pieces scream 1980s, and he is one of the biggest brands right now and everybody's seeing him everywhere. But also from Beyonce's Renaissance tour outfits being so crazy and so loud, it's like, it's been a minute. It's been a minute to see her perform, but also for her to step out in like these really cool like glittery silver to like. Okay. Hi. So basically, my camera died like literally right at that moment. So I didn't really finish what I was saying, but I mean, basically I was just saying that Jonathan Anderson's designs, specifically for Beyonce's Renaissance tour, was very loud and crazy. And that's how his designs always are. They're never really muted and quiet. Like, he's very outrageous and it's very fun. But I think he's a really big designer that has always been having little 80s touches here and there. And a lot of designers too that I've seen on the runway. But now I'm going to talk about trends that if you want to incorporate 1980s into your fashion, these are some trends that I would incorporate or that I've seen on the runway. This is a trend hypothesis. So, but yeah, anyways, enjoy. Some really cool trends that I've seen on the runway would be crazy proportions, workwear, trench coats, pastel colors, leg warmers, mesh embellishments, A-line skirts, puffy shoulders, bomber jackets, and kilts. Now, some of these I've been seeing since 2022 and a lot last year in 2023, but in 2024, I feel like the 80s is definitely going to just be, I don't know, that's my trend prediction, I feel like. And these specific trends, if you want to incorporate that, are definitely going to be, even though like these are 80s trends, they're going to be trends that are going to be big this year regardless. So yeah, but the ones that I want to really focus on the most are going to be crazy proportions, trench coats, A-line skirts, and kilts. I feel like crazy proportions have been kind of a thing since Y2K came back because we had a lot of people wearing oversized clothes, super tight clothes. Like, it was kind of, you know, wishy-washy, but I feel like now it's like a lot of designers are playing with it, from Simone Rocha to Loewe to Shapova, Loena. These designers are very, very big right now also, and it's been interesting to see a lot of like trash bag inspired looking clothing to like very, very tight leather dresses to like angular, like it's very geometrical, and I feel like that is something that the 80s really pushed, like the really big shoulders, hence why I'm wearing this dress, and like just like, you know, also workwear is something that, you know, is always gonna trend, but I feel like right now I've been seeing just a lot of like blazers, suit pants, vest, pantsuits. Like, it's just been kind of cool. Now I feel like out of all these trends, this one's probably the most 80s, and that's trench coats. People often think that trench coats originated from the early 2000s, specifically from like The Matrix, which is just not true, because whenever I think of trench coat, I think of what is that movie, The Breakfast Club? And when he's like, even though I've never seen that movie and I never will for personal reasons, yeah, trench coats are so 80s, and that trend is carried out till this day. but it's like now they're kind of coming back in a different way. Like I feel like it's coming back in like the really big, oversized, not really like fitted, but more so just like long and janky, like how they would look in the 80s. Like it was the type of coat that you would wear over your blazer. And yeah, it was a very big trend. A-line skirts. Now I saw this a lot on the runway, looking at Vogue runway, and this was kind of shocking because I feel like whenever we think of A-line skirts, or at least me, I think of like 2014, which also could be a nod to it, but these skirts were like all the way down to the ankles, which was shocking. I wasn't expecting that. So that's probably happening again. And I think that also ties in with like kilts, because I feel like, again, whenever you hear the word kilt, you think of the long, you know, plaid skirts. And I've seen those all over Pinterest, all over Instagram, social media. People are wearing, like, even like short ones, they're wearing those, but they're also layering them over jeans or pants. And I think that is another trend I also want to talk about in maybe a later video, but skirts over pants. That's definitely not going away anytime soon, whether you hate it or not. Yeah, I think those trends are probably the most 80s. I have not worn my hair like this since high school, and I don't think I ever will again, but I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed this outfit. Tell me what you think. Do you think the 80s are coming back? Because I do. Anyway, bye!